Ramda's birthday, 15th of August. So,
You spoke this morning with India.
yes.
It will be our spiritual leader.
Yes.
And my question is, since India will be the world spiritual, will lead the world into spiritual freedom, when do you think this will occur in view of the forces of unrest and darkness that particularly the communist leaders are trying to force the unenlightened minds into an ancestor? When do you think this spiritual freedom will occur?
A good question for a private meeting. It has already occurred. There is no imminent danger of the light being um, defeated by any force of darkness. That has already been done. Whenever a thing happens on the physical plane, much of the work before is always done in the subtle planes. So, apparently there are factors which human mind, when it looks at it intellectually and with conditions around, then it may think this possibility, that this is there, that is there, and 20 possibilities which are just practical possibilities of imminent danger or something, coming over and upsetting the whole situation. But that is the outer aspect of the thing. The inner aspect is that the forces of darkness have been already defeated. They have been defeated. Only the point is how human race or humanity, how far will it be ready to accept or open the light that has won the battle through human agencies. Because human agencies, when they take part in such a conflict, they are not conscious of the divine's presence and divine's help, you see. They only think that they have done it, and it's right, legitimate. That's human ignorance. Nobody complains about it. But it is the victory that the divine has given them, and the divine has brought down the light through the working of the vast forces in a world crisis. In fact, it was the last World War which was decisive point of victory for the divine. Last World War was the effort of the dark forces to set back the clock of evolution, the whole human culture, as far back as it could be put back. But they seem to succeed for a time being, and they almost seem as if they were on the verge of success. But somehow, the intervention of the divine awakened the soul of the races or the cultures that were fighting, and they did rise to the occasion by pledging faithfulness to higher ideals of life, to the gods, as we say in Indian language. They pledged themselves not to gain things, but to maintain values of life. You understand? Yes. So that was faithfulness on their part, and it made the divine help most effective. You see, it was the divine inspiration which gave them that they must stand faithful to higher ideals and values of life and not fight for commerce and money and economy and territory. You see, and that's what they proved faithful, and therefore divine gave them the victory which they deserved. With great sacrifice, suffering for the whole mankind, not only those people who fought suffered more, but the whole world had to go through difficult times. And the intervention, it was that really decided the point, really speaking. So the hostile forces have tried to maneuver the situation in such a way as to create another trouble if they can. You see, after the defeat of the Axis forces, they try to veer over round to the position of the communists, you see, and try to see if they can be made into a kind of active and successful opposition to anything that was coming from the light, you see. But it doesn't seem that it is making much headway. Not that the danger is completely past. Nobody would say it is a green light, you see. It's yet the red light, you can say, partly in the corner, ready to come anytime, become a full, so to say, danger signal. But it doesn't seem that it is possible now for the forces to muster so much force as to cloud the course of human culture toward higher light. If humanity wants to, now that is the responsibility of human race and humanity. Whether humanity wants to admit and open its heart or open its consciousness to light. If it does open, then a new era is already there. In fact, in the inner world, the new age has already come. See, leadership is not to be seen or judged by what happens outside. You see, that is a platform which is a world of appearance. It is a good thing. There, something higher must go on working up. Real leadership is behind. Behind is a sense of something that is done in the subtle, occult, and the psychic regions, which ultimately precipitates on the physical and material and outer life of man. You see, so there the work is already accomplished. Now the question is how it will accomplish in life, in actuality, in conditions of man's social life, political life, his own individual and collective life. Well, that is the problem which man has to see and solve. It will depend upon man's opening to this light which has come and try to create individual life and cultural life around this great light which has come. You see, the new age will not come on the base of the old. This basis has to go. Not that the world is to be destroyed, but the basis is to be destroyed. Basis is in the psychology of man. Everything will stand as it is. Only the inner support in man which makes it look economic centric, egocentric, desire centric, an outlook in which all the time the values are of the outer life and economy and money and power and so on. That will go and everything will be quite serviceable to the higher purpose then. You see, everything with scientific progress will be very nice because it will render a great help to the reconstitution of human life on the inner spiritual basis. Scientific progress itself is not bad, nor is the organization of life bad, nor is work bad, nor is production bad. What is wrong and what is difficult is man's attitude. The value which he creates, and he has now allied himself with the machine and he has made the machine a part of himself, so he tends to become more and more mechanical. And not only that, but the machine seems to be ruling him, practically trying to rule him. He is now saying that we must do this because machine requires it. We must do this because we have to keep up. There is no compulsion. Why should you do? Why should you do? You see, this once the question is put by men who think over this problem, and they need not convert anybody else. They have to only set about themselves. That's all. It must begin with the individual and say, I am going to live up faithful to my inner light and to the inner value of spiritual life, and I am not going to submit to this economic-centric outlook. Well, then the conversion will have already begun. The change will begin to come. That will come at once. You will see, because tremendous help is at the back of this force. You see, great power is working. A very, very great power which has never come before on earth is already working. And it is trying to see if man would see the light and would simply remain where he is, but only change his ego. The whole problem is not outer, but as I so often said, problem is man. Problem is not economics, politics, money, society, education, nothing. Problem is man. He must change. He has to change his whole psychological attitude and his constitution. The egocentricity must be replaced by seeking for the divine, and their desire must be removed, and the fulfillment of divine will must become his aspiration. You see, that he must try and want to fulfill the divine will. Well, then all the problems will begin to solve themselves, you see. Because then there are no problems. There is only harmony. After this attitude being put down in life, it will be only a passage or a movement or a march to realize a harmony which is there already. It won't be automatically attain harmony in one day, but one knows that the harmony is coming. So even in the midst of disharmony, difficulty and separation and problems, man will know that harmony is coming. So he will try to set everything right within himself, and he will see that around him things are getting set right.
the New Age has really started. Can you elaborate on that?
Huh?
And the New Age, what do you mean by the New Age?
Did I not give one whole speech on New Age?
What?
One whole exposition I gave before I went to Los Angeles in June. It was in the end of March. May. Huh? May.
Yeah.
In the month of May, I spoke one full evening on May on the New Age, and I can repeat some points if I don't remember now what I spoke at that time. But the New Age will consist in the change in values of life. You see, New Age will not consist in any outer revolutionary change, particularly visible to men. It will require a inner sight and a development to know the real change. Change has taken place, but to make other people see, it requires an inner development to see the change that has already taken place, you see. Only one or two incidents I can give for consideration, not for acceptance, because people can always explain the things away. You see, that is the human tendency. Human physical mind is such that it doesn't want to believe that anything can happen without its meddling into this. You see, it's a little pride that wants always to think that I must be in the bargain, otherwise nothing can happen. Well, that is the human ego, always trying to do like that. So when you explain, they say, no, no, it was so and so, it was such and such a thing, and so on. But I give one instance, which I did give that day, I remember if I am right in my memory. You go 20 years back. Now we are in 1962, go to 1940 or 42. And you imagine England and France putting their army in the Suez Canal area in 1940. Do you think they would have come back without fighting? Personally, as a student of world affairs, I think they would not have come back without fighting. 1940. What happened between that and this time that they put the army and yet without fighting they withdrew? You see, so something has happened in the interval which made them feel that there is perhaps a force greater than military force, which says, well, don't fight. And there you are. They could not, they did not fight. I mean, they counted. I don't say there was no reason for them not to fight. If they had fought, there was reason, and they're not fought, there is a reason. You see, reason is nothing. Reason is only to explain your conduct or explain your decision. Reason is not the thing by which you come to any conclusion. Reason doesn't lead to any conclusion. It only leads you to justification of what you decided. Huh?
Could this be fear, Purani? Could this be fear that would cause them to afraid that
They might have their own calculation. Both sides must have their own calculation. I don't say they didn't think and calculate and said 50-50, now 55-45. All that is nonsense. They would not have calculated that in 1940. That's all I say. Their calculation would have been that we shall fight and we shall get it. Now the time came when they said, no, calculating, they said this side is better. Now what made them feel that decision? That is the point. And I personally believe that it's the intervention of a higher power which has changed the atmosphere after the Second World War in such a way that as far as possible, it won't be easy to disturb peace. I don't say peace will be, sacrosanct and the people will keep to peace. I mean, nations, there will be always a possibility of human ignorance and, the hostile force is always coming and disturbing anything great coming in for humanity. But as it is, it seems that it is now a question of time as to when the world unity will be realized fully. And one can help it very much by taking up the inner attitude, not by this outer movement is good in its way. Outer movement, people saying that we must have this and UNO, and that's a good sign because people have a platform to talk and to decide and to understand each other and to wear out their differences. You see, it is quite good. But apart from that, the real thing is to be done in human consciousness, that there must be feeling and thinking about the world as one. If individuals who are serious about this problem all the time think in terms of one world, feel in terms of one world, and as far as they possible act in terms of one world, well, the world unity will come much nearer, much nearer. It will not come only by politicians and by resolutions. No. That is a secondary way and a good way. You don't discourage anything, it's good in the right direction.
I, there have been, when I told my husband, they've been in discussions with physicists, and they have made this comment. Now, what the value of how true this is, I don't know, but I've heard them say that our Earth is entering a new cosmic atmospheric ray or element which is charged with chemicals. And as we have been approaching this new era, this cosmic era, the chemistry of our body has changed, and we are still continuing to change. And if also these rays have a vibratory effect on our thinking, and that it opens up the subconscious mind, and we reach depths of reasoning that have never been this before. And that is the reason why so many of our youth of today, they have vision, they have understanding far beyond our scope, because their bodies already have met the requirements of the new cosmic atmosphere. Now, is this true?
I don't know personally physics whether physics would support because physicists are rather more materialistic in their outlook, and they wouldn't want to admit anything except what they know. That's one. and what they know is very little, so far even as physical things are concerned. Because there is no reason to suppose that Earth is entering into any new atmosphere yet. Unless you want to say that a new atmosphere here itself is being created. That is a different matter. The solar system is not entering into some other atmosphere which it didn't have before, as far as we can see. What is the basis for them to say that Earth is entering into another interstellar atmosphere? I don't know personally so much of the present advance. I have tried to keep abreast of physical advance, and I try to know how far the physical science is going. But I don't think that this is a proposition which many of the eminent physicists would support. I don't think. The change, if you say change has taken place here itself or is taking place here itself, Earth atmosphere itself is undergoing a change in the light of experience of man and so on. And that change works indirectly on people, not directly. That change will work on people indirectly by creating or attempting to create an atmosphere favorable to certain inner life. But the change has to be brought about by man's conscious turning. A cooperation of the human consciousness is indispensable. For the change that is needed now for the new age, the first necessity is the turning of the human consciousness and a conscious cooperation with the light that is coming, you see. Much of the work will be done by the higher consciousness, but the opening and the turning has to be the responsibility of human beings, because it is they who must admit the light. Light never forces itself on people, you see. It never compels anyone to admit its working or, its desirability. And as for the children or people that are born, always when you have a new generation, well, naturally, those people who have something to do with the future also come in. You see, those people who are more fitted to receive the future would be there. I mean, as logic would say, make us believe. But apart from that, to say that they are, more ready for higher truth and so on would be too much, because the percentage of such also would not be very great, perhaps. The percentage of people ready for such a life change or radical change in their life would not be very great change, you see. A large number, it would, but it would be there. So you would certainly find more capacity in the younger people than the capacity in the people who are now old and very young. You see, at that time, perhaps they had not such precociousness or readiness for new ideas and change and understanding. The percentage would not be very big. That's what I think. But they would certainly be there.
Was that the Nehru who's the head of India now?
Yes, he's the third time he's running prime minister. 15 years. The record. And he's the only leader that way who has till now worked, and so people think that he would do the best to lead for the next. He has run through the true 5-year plans, and they think that the third is the biggest one, so it is better that he runs it.
All the working able at will the ascend or descend in various states of consciousness. Have you personal control over this, or does these states of consciousness come upon you?
Well, tomorrow I could say something more, but even as you put it, in his case, the radical experience came to him in 1909. As I already read to you before, did I not? The Uttarpara speech?
Yeah.
Yes, 1909, March 30th. Uttarpara speech. It is dated there and printed at that time, so it's not new. It is experiences in his own words there. You remember that, what I read?
Yeah.
Uttarpara speech? I think I quoted that, isn't it? Huh? Yes, yes. You remember that? Yes. I spoke more at Phoenix, perhaps. Yes, that's it. Right. All right. Here I had to quote a different passage, but at Phoenix I quoted the pertinent passage, showing his experience in 1909, March 30th. That became the turning point in his life. And then his effort was that as the divine guided him and gave him the adesh, as we say in India, order or command, that you withdraw from politics and devote yourself to this because this is the work for humanity. Now I give you the whole story, you see, because this is not thing for public, but still, as we are a group interested in it, it was a command given to him that you have a more important work than securing the freedom of India. Therefore, you withdraw from this and dedicate yourself to this work because this is a work for humanity. So he withdrew from politics. Now you must go back to 1909 to imagine that politics of Indian continent. There was no leader at that time outside jail. He was the only nationalist leader who was out. And the great difficulty for him to decide was that if he leaves the political field, people will think that he didn't want to do it or he was afraid of doing, which was not true at all. You see? And also, secondly, there was after he retired to Pondicherry, 10 times he was proposed as the president of the Indian National Congress. 10 times people proposed him to the presidency of Indian National Congress, and he did not accept. So there were 2 points. One was the point of duty, that he had been the only nationalist leader out who didn't want to leave the post simply because he doesn't want to do it, but there is an inner command which he has to obey. Secondly, if he was ambitious, there was big enough ambition for him to be attracted by. Both of these, in the light of divine guidance, he refused and rejected and retired to Pondicherry under divine, guidance. And since then, his yoga was not under his own, initiation, but under the guidance of the divine. Till an identification was established between himself and the divine, and he had not to make any effort to realize divine consciousness. In fact, in 1918, when I met him, he was already divine in that sense, and I told him, I who had not full experience at that time, even I told him, what are you waiting for? Because I knew that he had the divine consciousness, you see. So he said that it is there, but I have to make it descend and allow it to come down and transform the nature part, the intellectual consciousness, the emotional consciousness, the vital consciousness, and the physical consciousness. And it is for the complete transformation of nature that I am waiting, not for attaining the divine consciousness. So in his case, it's an exceptional case of someone in whom the complete identity with the divine is established and no effort is required for him to attain the divine consciousness. For 26, 28 years, I have seen him all the time in the divine consciousness, if you believe what I know. That is what has not happened in human, evolution up till now. That's why I say there is a great hope that it could remain in the atmosphere like that and change human nature and intervene in the world war and bring about a change in the situation even in outer life is a sign that intervention is very much possible and could be effective if man wants it. The problem is man. 500 years. For the divine consciousness, there is no time. We don't live in time that way. We live in eternity. It's all right.
Aurobindo told you in 1918 that India would be free.
Yes.
And it was some, what?
30 years. 30 years after.
30
yes.
years after.
31, yes.
So this possibly very much similar, only a larger scale.
Yes, perhaps 50 years, 60 years, 100 years. We don't know. 50 years maybe. Don't know. Time is not important from there. You don't live in time when you live in this consciousness. It's all right. Time you work in time and on time. You bring about changes in time as the divine intents. It's not the... There is no anxiety about time and space, you see.
That the forces of light have already won over the forces of dark.
So far as human evolution is concerned, yes. It is with regard to human history and human growth. Not for every human being. You must make a distinction, yes, that's right.
Then there is no, you do not believe in it, the world physically will be dominated will be under communist domination at any time, and that this is already...
I don't think it will be, but it will always require effort. I mean, when it is, done in the inner world, in the outer world, there is always the clash of forces. It is worked out not by a fiat which comes like a miracle and says, let there be light and there was light. No, it's not like that. But people will be moved in such a way that the domination will not happen. There will be such action that domination has not that chance which it had, say, 10 years or 20 years back. When Stalin was alive, for matter of that, you see. There was a far greater chance.
What is your view of the UN?
It's a very good, important progress, very great progress, very great step towards human unity, very great step. It should now become stronger and stronger, and every individual in humanity and also nations must support it as far as they can, because it is the only institution which gives a platform for human differences to be set right without clash. You see, that's one great chance, and it should be now turned into a federation of free nations. You see, a free people, federation of free people, where some sort of, not a world state, but world organization will be brought into existence. I don't like the idea of world state, which I think Attlee tried to, he sponsored that idea of a world state. He said that world is already ready for world state. But a state is something which always tends to become more mechanical and lifeless, you see. It depends on all outer, methods and outer means. But if a federation takes place, federation of free people or free nations, which has a sanction of the majority of nations, then they would be able to impose discipline and prevent clashes even by intervention of force if necessary. You see, it should not become a world state in which certain people who can maneuver better, would have the biggest say. You see, it is better to have a federation rather than a state which is organized like a machine. A federation of free people or free nations organizing a sort of a government, you see, a loose government. Like English constitution, you see, English constitution has no written laws, but it's a very strict constitution. Even a king cannot marry one whom loves, you see. And there is no law preventing anything from being done, and yet nothing can be done. It is such a strange thing. Well, if one can evolve that sort of unity at the basis, at the center, where the UNO becomes a kind of, governing power, so to say, a federation which has a legislative power, so to say, that so-and-so will not do this thing, then he wouldn't dare to do it, because he knows that all others are really supporting it. It's not a political stunt, so to say, not a majority which is maneuvered, but majority which is meant. Well, then I don't think anybody would easily, go against peace. And it would slowly establish standard or norm of behavior in international life. And wherever there were different, it would intervene to settle. And settle with a sort of a committee appointed or international body, which takes, the consideration of two sides and gives a decision. And then the decision becomes slowly compulsory, you see. That is the way it might work. And then it might slowly dictate partial disarmament culminating in complete disarmament. Such a body alone can do it because it must keep a reserve of force available to its own self to enforce its own decision and ask the people partially to go on disarming, you see, with a partial disarmament. It is quite workable proposition. In that case, you can also go in for multiple citizenship. That is to say, a man belonging to America can be a citizen of India, or an Indian can be a citizen of England. You see? I mean, multinational citizenship, yes. Why should citizenship be only to one country? There's no reason. This limitation creates a sort of an artificial barrier very often. European countries who are Belgium, Holland, or these small countries, Duchy of Luxembourg and all, why do they not remove their custom barriers? I think they are trying to remove now under the European plan, are they? I don't remember, but they should have removed long ago. When for the last 10 years, what their income is. The barriers are that whenever somebody crosses the border, there is a custom. You know that. Now, for the last 10 or 15 years, there is an average. You know how much they have earned. Well, you can then federate and say everybody will go freely. This is the income, you will get this income. And only collect it at one point or the last point or the beginning point, and that would be an end of the matter. Then a facility in crossing and the feeling that I go to another country will be removed more and more. You see, when a man crosses from Holland to Belgium, which is just like a stone's throw, it's hardly a district of India. You see, and yet it's another country with all full-fledged government and all sorts of things. It's all right. But if he crosses, he must not feel he's going in the world, and there are nations which are equal, and where he goes is brotherhood or equality, and he's not going to any strangers after all. He's going in one world which everyone is everybody's world after all. Well, it would remove this sort of movement if it is sponsored and supported. It would mean something. There are people who have been in India for a long time, for instance. There are Indians who have been in Africa. Now, they can be African citizens and they can be Indian citizens. Why should they not? There are Englishmen in Kenya and Uganda and Tanganyika. Now, Englishmen can be English and they can be also Africans. Why not? They can be citizens of England and Africa. Why shouldn't be multiracial citizenship be impossible? There are many things that could be done, you see. Because it is already coming, it will come, it has got to come.
You see this present ideal evolving out of the present United Nations, right?
Yes, I think it could. It has a tremendous possibility, very great possibility. The difficulty lies in the statesmen who go there. The difficulty is the man, as I told you. But it is their difficulty. You see, they are also handicapped, poor fellows. You can't blame them too much. They are working under limitations of their own nature and their own nation. They can't do what they like. The nation dictates, you see. He can't speak even what he likes. He will be held up and say, what do you mean by saying what we told you to say so much, and why did you say more? Yes, they are in tongues.
Well, I think it's coming, but I think there's going to be a tremendous education amongst the new nations. Now, to equate, for instance, with all their faults, the British have been self-governing for 1,000 years. And literally hundreds of generations of people, they have learned the restraint of self-governing. Now, to try to take one of these new nations that's formed in Africa, where the inhabitants have been living underneath the trees, most of them, all their lives, in a matter of a few years, expect to bring them into a society which has been educated over a period of hundreds of years is unless something, well, with the intellectual force we have today is not adequate. Now, if we get the supermental, this is different. But with the purely intellectual forces, it's going to be an awfully long time.
Yeah, it's all right. I think that they will also hurry up, I suppose.
As long as the United Nations is merely a debating society, which it is today, certain inequities will be allowed to continue. But we know, for instance, in the formation of our own country, if you've read U.S. history, the greatest problem that we had, the formation of the Constitution, was the struggle they had between the big states and the little states, because the little states felt that they would be gobbled up by the big states. And after a period of several months of debate, they settled on the principle of the bicameral House, which we have today, the Senate, where you have representation, equal representation from each state, and then in the House of Representatives, where the representations by population. And as a matter of fact, we're finding in the United States today, in quite a number of states, a tremendous drive toward redistribution of votes because the cities have grown up and there hasn't been a redistribution, and in certain places, say in Michigan, a farmer has 20 times the votes that a man in Detroit does. And the same thing occurs in quite a number of states. Now, in the United Nations today, there's only one vote, only one house. And to equate some of these nations...
No, there is the
Yes,
council also on the top.
Yes, but to equate, they have one vote in there, they have one vote. And to equate some of these new African nations, say, with a large, mature nation like the United States, like equating the city of New York to Sedona, something like that. And it will, from practical purposes, it's a debating society. But if it's going to be an control thing, then there's going to have to be a lot more.
No, but there is the what is called the top body. I forget the name. Yeah. There is the
Assembly or something. Well, there's each.
No, the five people where they have the veto. You see, that is the United States.
Well, this practically closes it up because any this is right. This is your veto, and any one of the five nations can veto it, and it's not. It is, for instance, Russia has applied the veto something like 40 times or something. Like that.
Yeah.
Now, if we're going to have a true governing body, then there's going to have to be, in my opinion at least, a great deal. Going to have more equitable representation. Because nobody is freely say upper one of these new stations. I forgot the states, the upper something here with 5 million people and probably 5 high school graduates, the equivalent place, is going to be given the same equality of voting that a mature country like the United States or India or England or France. It just doesn't make sense, that's all. I do think that the United Nations...
No, but most of these new people, I tell you, what happens to them or what is happening to them as far as I study is that they are under the wing of somebody.
Yeah.
They are under the wing of somebody. You see, they are... it is like, now 20 people are going to be voters. I give you, that is how it has happened. So far as I have studied the situation in Congo, what the situation in Congo has been something like this, that about 20 new people are going to be voters. So 2 or 3 candidates who are possible candidates or candidates, that hope to get the votes, they are busy canvassing there, all right. They are trying to say, but you come in and you vote for us. And if you vote for us, you will get this. And if you vote for us, so that they are being, in fact, indirectly educated by people who want to secure their votes already. And I think that they won't take very long time. Only their difficulty, as far as I can see, is the tribal constitution, consciousness. Their difficulty is tribal consciousness.
No.
If they can outgrow the tribal consciousness, then I think that man to man, there is not much difference in their equipment except experience of life. Yes.
Well, numbers and property and other things which are relatively important when you vote.
Yeah,
I mean,
their property has
Lord-
been taken away by Belgium or Germany or France or England. What their property is not less. So
Yeah.
far as property is
Yeah, but
concerned,
if
they
the
are people,
Lord-
property people. Other people came and took away their property. That's all. I mean, they would not have been able to utilize it. I grant.
No, but I mean, what created these new nations? A political event. I mean, in other words, in my opinion, the divine didn't say, this is a new nation and this is equivalent to all the nations we've had. This was a matter of expediency. Certain, as a matter of fact, right now in Africa, they're going to get more rather than less people. As you say, these tribes, which are not even civilized, are not that they can't be someday. But I think that personally, I feel that the United Nations is, if it's ever going to be other than a sounding board, and I think it's excellent we have for that, these nations are going to have to mature. they're going to have to.
I
grow
think
up.
that they will have to be a loose federation by consent. You see, a federation by consent, and when once the consent is given, the legislative power of the UNO would become effective. That's the point.
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that the long.
But this is I mean the play of the outer forces, and we are not dealing with that today. I mean, we are not outside trying to decide the action of the UNO. We are trying to see how far the higher consciousness which is operative has brought into existence the possibility of one world union. That's the point, you see. And
Well-
I think that it is already in the offing and it is there coming. Now the fast or the weight, the speed of its coming will depend upon the wisdom of the politician, the opening of man to that light, and changes which are necessary.
You think it'll depend on the wisdom of politicians? I think that that day we won't have any politicians.
I hope so.
I lived in Lafayette, Indiana for about 5 or 6 years. And I was a student at Purdue for most of that time. Purdue is a large state university in this country. And they have a very large number of foreign students. I personally met ones from Sudan and Ghana and
Yes.
Nigeria.
Yes.
And had them as guests in my home, not counting a couple of hundred Indian students, although I didn't get to meet all of them. That was a physical impossibility. But on a large campus like that, you see where the different countries, both themselves and with aid from scholarships at this end, there's a lot of these people are being educated and are sincerely trying to learn things that they can take back to better their socio-economical situation at home. And it's very inspiring. It gives you a lot of hope that
Yes.
this is something that's going to happen. I mean, this growth can possibly happen a lot faster than it
Yes.
did 50 years ago or
Oh,
100
yes.
years ago.
You know, there are,
For doing it in a generation or two are tremendous.
I tell you, in India, there are more than about 500 African students in India itself, in various universities and industrial
And then
concerns.
we here have other students from India that want to learn more about, first of all, what the rest of the world is about. Others have come here to learn things that the Indian schools don't teach because they are centered on the arts and on math. They don't have the technical schools that we have, of course, and for girls. And I have seen young single girls, 18 years old. One of them came from Persia, all alone. And I've also met young Indian girls who came here. One of them came married and left her husband and children at home to study here. Another girl came here alone. I think you know enough about Indian society to realize that having an Indian girl come all this way to live in our society is a tremendous thing to undertake. And it's difficult for the boys. They have about 200 at Purdue, and some of them have terrible personal problems, and even the girls come. And, of course, they're charming, and sometimes it's a little easier to make room for them in your heart and home. I mean, people find it this way. That is a strange young man. But I think there's a great deal of hope for equalizing the situation as we consider it. And much faster.
Yes, it is faster, much faster. That is because of the great technical advance and the great, transfer of thought from one place to another.
Yes, and
Great exchange.
these boys are going back to higher the standards of their local schools, and they have so many students there from Formosa, and then they go back and increase their number of colleges there, and the possibilities are limitless. I met a young man from Korea, and
There
he
are so
was
many.
working on his doctorates in egg, and they're trying very hard and working very hard. And this is
And they are all over, not only
and
here,
they're
I
all
think in
over.
England
That's
also.
right. It's really just a drop in the bucket. Some schools have an even wider variety of foreign students, and the schools aren't any bigger. Some of the very small colleges have quite a few foreign students.
Yeah, they are in England also. I met them in
Oh,
England
yeah.
in 55. I met many of the foreign people. Kuwait and Arabia and Persia and so on. They are sending there.
It's changed when you did for 1 year.
Mm.
No, I wasn't being exchange students, but I used the wrong word. It's the coming of foreign students and mingling with other countries.
Yes.
I think that's one of the most constructive.
Yes, that is the one thing that brings the unity nearer.
More understanding. A lot of these Indian students came to Purdue and other schools. Even I met one from the University of Oklahoma, and I asked him, "What are you studying?" He said, "Math." And I said, "Well, undergraduate student in math yet, too, not a graduate student." And I said, "Well,
Say that sense.
about a month ago, I heard a lecture speak.
Huh?
About a month ago, I heard a lecture in Salt Lake City, and he said that."
You see, this kind of story which people set afloat is very often the expression of an aspiration and a hope, which is not bad, I personally don't think. But it is also, there is a difficulty and a sort of, what can I say, a sort of a danger. Danger in the sense that then anybody sets up a sort of an idea that such and such X, Y, or Z is a world teacher, and then, things are arranged as if he was the world teacher. Now, my idea of the world teacher is that he brings a new message to the world, first of all, and he has, first of all, the divine consciousness. That was the first condition.
Yeah.
And he has a light to throw on the whole problem of mankind, and also a light to throw on the individual's problem of, outgrowing his ignorance, overcoming his ego, and realizing the divine. Well, if he brings that, then I think that he can be said to be one who has brought a message to the modern world. And such a all-embracing and, integral message I see in Sri Aurobindo. But that may be my own idea. I don't say that I would accept everyone to accept that idea. I have studied before I accepted him. It's not that I accepted him. Sri Aurobindo, my guru.
Oh,
Yes.
Aurobindo.
So I have studied, I studied other people also, I followed other paths also, I saw, I tried, and I found that this is somebody who has got a light which humanity requires today, and a light which is creative. Creative in the sense of no rejection of life, but an acceptance of life for the sake of the divine. There is no renunciation in the sense that unless you renounce, you cannot realize God. No. Life is to be accepted, but accepted for the divine. And how to make the life a field for the divine, an individual life and collective life. In both the fields, he has himself gone through a long process of divine guidance, as I was telling our sister here, Miss Roper. I just was telling that in 1909 he got his first illumination. Then, under divine guidance, he withdrew from politics. And for 18 years, he did nothing else but experiment on himself to see whether the divine would abide with him. And identification with the divine was so thoroughly established that he was made to take up this task of expressing for the mankind the possible form of collective life, of international politics, poetry, arts, philosophy, psychology, all fields of cultural activity of man and individual man. What would be the effort that he has to make in order to, bring this consciousness into individual life and collective life? Having got it himself, he was in a condition to give it to mankind today and give it in a rational way. He didn't say that, accept me as a world teacher. He never said that he was a world teacher. In fact, he never said he was a teacher. There is the funniest incident I can now recount to you because it's 40 years old. When I first went to him in 1918, after we finished our talk, there was a small table, about 3 by 2.5, you see. And he was sitting on this side and I was on the other side. After finishing my talk about yoga and sadhana and India's freedom and all that, in that time, 1918 December, you see. So I rose up to go. And when I bowed down to him, because in India we bow down to the Guru, you see. So when I bowed down to him, when I got up, I saw that he was there in in the door halfway through the through his own room, in his own room. He was not even standing where I'm bowing down. He was there. If it was this side, he was there just entering his room with one leaf of the door open and looking at me and smiling. So I got up and I was thinking nothing, and then I looked up. Then he was waiting. He knew that it will happen. So perhaps, you see. So when I looked up, there's nobody here. You see. Then I looked up. He was just standing there in his own room, just half the door. And
levitated.
no. He walked back to his room. He walked back to his room and didn't want to accept my obeisance, my surrender. You see. That's no, it's nature. It's nature like that. He allowed people to bow down afterwards when he could do something with them by their prostration or their surrender and give them back something more than they could give him. But that's a different story. This is what happened in 1918. I am recounting you to show the world teacher need not become a world teacher by saying I am a world teacher. I mean.
It's nature that said they probably the one he didn't acknowledge. I don't know who he is.
Yes.
But we just made this lecture that
Yes.
that it was so wrong.
See, a great world work is not done with a great eclat, as they say in French. You see, it's a great sound. Very often, most important work is done perhaps in silence. Like that. And a banyan tree shoot comes out, it doesn't come out with a bang. It comes it comes out most silently.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Isn't it true too that Sri Aurobindo definitely didn't believe in proselyting?
No, he didn't want to convert people, no. He wanted people to try. He wanted people to accept the light, and if he accepted, he was ready to help. He was ready to accept them, but accept them not because he wants to have disciples, but he wants to accept them if they want to try and open themselves for the light. Oh, he could have had millions if he wanted to, but he stopped. Several times during 1923 to 26, I used to ask him, that why don't you try to make propaganda? Because people would know. Our intent was that many people should take advantage, not propaganda in the sense of converting or making many followers, but let them know that such a rich, light is possible for them to get. So we try to persuade him to see that why do we not do something so that other people may know. So he said, no, this is not to be done in that way. If you give out the thing like that, it will appear like an advertisement, you see. And that is what happens to all advertisement, is that people who are not deserving will always come in. People who have no call for the inner light will come in because they think this is something great and some miracle, let us all go and get something. So people who are full of desire and impulses will come, and it's no use getting such people. They are already there, plenty in the world. So let people who see come, you see. People who want, and they will have to do something, their own part. Much will be done for them, but they will have to do the first part by opening and by accepting the light. Great economic crisis, you see. And my conception at that time was that being a political leader and well-known, great worker, he would get financial help much more easily if it was known in certain circles, public life in those days. You see, early days, not before, when India was free, before India was free, that nationalist circles would easily give money for his, keeping up at Pondicherry. He didn't take. No.
Well, don't you think the mother could have gotten a lot more money too if she'd been willing to do it?
Yes.
Yes.
For her.
Not to make an effort, did you say?
To be in divine consciousness, because he was always in it. So you're not to make an effort for what you are in already.
Can you make too much effort as an individual? No, I'm not talking about our business, but as an individual, can you make too much effort?
Not too much effort, there's never too much.
No.
See, if you by too much you imply ambitious effort, it's not good to make. There are people who also go in spiritual life with strong ambition.
Yeah.
And they may make too much effort in that sense that can get them some power, and then one doesn't know what would happen. Because the divine would give in return for what one has done as penance or tapasya, as they call it, ascesis. He would get something, and then what he would do will depend on him. If he can become unselfish and completely surrender to the divine, then he may have a great progress. But if he keeps the power and utilizes it, he can build up a strong ego. Why not?
Sri Aurobindo says in several places that you must build up your body and your strength so that you can open yourself fully and completely to the divine. That and it's a slow process, because if you opened yourself too soon, you just wouldn't be able to sustain the forces that come in.
Yes, but
Now, this is controlled by the divine itself, isn't it? I mean, in other words, it's
yes.
impossible for anybody to open themselves to fully the point.
yes, very few people can do that, you see. To pull, as they say, that in the yogic language they say you open and allow it to come, or you pull. Now, the power to pull is not very much widespread or frequent, you see. And it is not safe also to pull. The safe process is to open and keep the attitude and aspiration of surrender and aspiration to call in the divine for effecting the change in oneself. That's all. And take aspiration in all the parts of the being, not only in the intellect or in the emotion or in the willpower or vital, but all through. Make it as all pervasive as possible. And keep the aspiration alive as long as one can during the course of the day. It's not only at the time of meditation that one should concentrate. One should do concentration all the time. That is really an all-time work. So all the time there should be a part of consciousness, at least if not the whole consciousness, concentrated in the inner aim, aspiring or looking up to the divine or surrendering to the divine or watching oneself or rejecting what is undesirable and so on. All the time the process must go on. Then the work will be quickened and the divine help will be available in maximum measure, you see.
Friend was telling us the other day or last night, I forget when, that we can meditate when we're walking. And the ideal, of course, is to just have to meditate when you're working, right?
Well, you said that Sri Aurobindo was usually walking.
Oh yes, he used to work hours together.
I think Brother Lawrence, he called it living in the present, practicing the present. He tried to, I think,
Yes,
trying to establish that.
yes,
Seeing the activity of the universe,
yes.
of the infinite, and everything that he touched to handle, whether it's beneath him above. Because in the climb analysis, we know there's no up, no down, no
Yes.
high, no low, no good or bad. It's all in their oneness. Right? And I thought, that it helped me a great deal to,
Yes, yes. Yes, the realization has several, characters. That is to say, it is possible to have a mental realization, an intellectual realization as you call it. Supposing you train your mind to the idea of oneness everywhere, then the mind can have a mental realization of that oneness, which is real as far as the mind can go. It is not the realization of the spiritual unity, which is different. You understand? It is quite possible. And this is genuine. It's nothing wrong in it. It's quite good. It's a good step forward, in fact. But a mental realization is confined to, intellectual or mental consciousness. It would not go beyond that consciousness. The consequences of the spirit being realized as one would be known by practical tests and experiences. You see? Tests and experiences, yes. You would know it by that. For instance, when you say that everything is one, for instance. This is a mental concept, which is correct. And mind can train itself to this oneness and the presence, as you say, quite genuinely. If one gets into the true spirit consciousness, then he would know the oneness and also at the same time the variation which has necessitated the difference in the form. And based on that oneness, so that one would know why a flower is a flower. Flower would not become table because there is oneness. You understand? You follow?
Unity and diversity.
Yeah, unity. This when mental conception is there and mental realization there, one will feel one everywhere. So he will say that is the divine, that is the divine, that is the divine, which is correct in one sense, quite right. It is a good step, but it is not the spiritual realization in the sense that if one was in the consciousness, then he would know far, far more and much more profoundly than mere this concept of oneness, you see, much more. There is no comparison between that knowledge and the realization that comes by a mental process of concentration, which is a good step. I mean to say, not more want to say that it is not a realization. Please don't misunderstand me. I am only trying to make clear the profundity of the possible experience which goes behind and much deeper.
Well, that's the revelation.
Yes, yes. Then one sees the divine presence, well, it is of such a different character that variation not only is allowed, but the purpose of the variation is known and the full divinity is known in the smallest thing, fullest presence of the divinity. Fullest presence of the divinity. It is such a difference that one would say, well, yes, that was also good, but this is something, a difference, but quite different experience, you see. It's better one can begin with something after all, there's nothing wrong. The atmosphere is ready. Many people try and get something, whatever one is ready for, whatever one is, striving, there is always something coming. When sincere effort is made, it never is in vain. So something always turns up. And that is how atmosphere can be made ready also in the world. Hundreds and thousands of people making efforts in different ways, one going one step, 10 steps, 2 steps, 3 steps in different directions. That's good because it creates an atmosphere, you see, which is congenial to the growth of spiritual attitude towards life. You see, that is what we want. Just on life divine, you would have then followed the logic of what I am talking. We had about 18 lectures on life divine, which he has written one big book on his philosophical outlook, life divine. And we then make some exposition here for 20 days and 18 days or something, no? We had about 18 days, life divine, 20 days practically. And there, what the origin of ignorance, how one omnipresent reality is responsible for the world and no necessity for explaining ignorance by illusion or by anti-divine force and so on. The great philosophical, metaphysical, explanation which he has given of the world based on one reality. Its basis is that one reality which is omnipresent is working, and that is the universe. And everything in the universe has to be explained by this. And he explains ignorance, suffering, evil, falsehood and everything on the basis that one reality is working. It's a very great philosophical contribution. Just to explain man, to make an effort. It's not to encourage them to study philosophy. That's not the aim. Aim is that they should then make an effort to reach the truth.
Was asking me and her. I don't feel qualified to answer. And I think you've already answered this, but I don't remember exactly your answer. Did Ramakrishna achieve the same state of consciousness that Sri Aurobindo?
Ramakrishna did not organize any expression of his realization. Ramakrishna had his own great realization of the supreme power, the power aspect of the Satchidananda or the Supreme. And the power aspect worked in him gave him the realization, and through him gave the enlightenment to some people. But he didn't organize it for life at all. The inspiration was not there. That is the best explanation I can find, that he had not that inspiration. And therefore his work was carried out by Vivekananda, not by himself. The Ramakrishna mission is not a creation of Ramakrishna himself, but of Vivekananda. Primarily of Vivekananda alone, in fact. I can tell you from inside that there were disciples of Ramakrishna who did not approve of the starting of Ramakrishna mission. This may not be known now.
Who did not what?
Did not approve of Vivekananda starting the Ramakrishna mission.
That's terrible.
Vivekananda did it on his own.
Not on his own, Vivekananda was a very powerful person and a very great soul. So when Vivekananda proposed the formation of Ramakrishna mission, this Nag Mahasaya, one of the senior followers of Ramakrishna, in a private meeting objected to it when he went back from America and said that he would like to start an organization so that work may be organized and properly, take shape, which was quite necessary from his point of view. Nag Mahasaya first objected to that, and Nag Mahasaya was older than Vivekananda, you see, in age also, in seniority, so far as discipleship of Ramakrishna was concerned. Nag Mahasaya was older man. And Vivekananda used to look upon him as his elder brother, used to call him Dada. You see, Dada means elder brother. So he was feeling rather discouraged that when he was disapproved of the Ramakrishna mission, then he was a little hesitant. Then on reconsideration, Nag Mahasaya thought that when he has received the inspiration, why should I stop him? You see? So next day or third day he told him, well, if you have received the inspiration, you go forward, I don't believe in it and I won't participate. So he didn't join the Ramakrishna mission, you see. One of the senior most disciples of Ramakrishna. There were half a dozen others also, but he was prominent. I mean, there were half a dozen others who didn't join Ramakrishna mission, and they were lifelong devotees of Ramakrishna and disciples. But some of the sannyasis who were already initiated, of him Vivekananda was the leader, well, they joined the order and they started. And it's a good work in one sense. But it doesn't owe its inspiration to Ramakrishna. What I wanted to point out is that Ramakrishna mission is not started by Ramakrishna, by Vivekananda.
Well, was that also because Vivekananda had traveled and he came back with the idea, came back to India with the idea that it would be good to have some activity, not just contemplation. Did that make quite a difference?
Not contemplation. They need not have contemplation. They could have rebuilt life if they wanted to. But his inspiration came that way. That's all.
Well, Vivekananda was an extremely well-educated man.
Yes.
He was an organizer and
He had a personality.
Tremendous organizing
Yes.
ability and so forth, and it required somebody like that to...
Yes, he was a personality, great personality, a great powerful personality. He has done some good work. Only that last year, 20 years or so, they are going more towards social work rather than on spiritual side, which is a little going at a tangent.
Like
Outer work, outer social activities, education, hospital and famine relief and so on, some kind of social service and outer aspect. That can be turned into spiritual, method if you practice it as karma yoga. But if it is only external activity, then it loses that spiritual, the aim, main purpose. But as far as it goes, it's quite good. As an activity, it's quite a nice activity. They work hard, some of them, they work hard and regularly organize themselves and serve the public and so on.